Think we'll get started here. All right, hello and welcome to today's webinar. We'll be discussing how to build your lean brand online and help jumpstart your job search for the new year. We see a lot of candidates interested in new opportunities when the new year begins, and many of our clients are similarly looking to kick off new position searches come January. So this is a really great time of year for you to beef up your LinkedIn profile, fine-tune your resume, and start to prepare for lean-oriented interviews. So as we go through, include some questions in the questions section on the side taskbar there, and I will work to answer them at the end. If I miss any, we run out of time, I will definitely be answering the remaining questions or all of the questions by email inside of the next week or so. So don't worry that your question will be answered at one point. So please feel free to ask throughout. You may know Lean Focus from the consulting side of our practice, but the jobs that you see us advertising on LinkedIn are actually through our talent search side of the business. So we partner with our transformational clients to really help them find top talent in lean, operations, supply chain, and beyond. So we're focused on helping strong candidates find their next role with companies that truly value lean, while ensuring that our clients get new employees to help drive continuous improvement in all areas of their business. We work with both the client companies and our candidates to ensure that there's a strong mutual match. And our job really is to bridge that gap between our network of candidates and our network of clients. So a little bit about me. I'm Lauren Ransom Lamb. I have been working in recruitment since I graduated college in 2013. My internships during college were actually with a marketing firm where I rotated through client marketing and human resources in 5 different summer and winter breaks. So this made me honestly kind of uniquely qualified to join Higher Logic after graduating to handle marketing while assisting with recruitment related research and database management. I started doing full cycle recruitment a few months after I started, which really became my main focus for a while. So I worked primarily on shop floor and engineering level positions and kind of worked my way up into recruiting for management level roles within manufacturing companies specifically. So I gained exposure to lean ideologies over the years when placing candidates at companies that had strong lean disciplines with locations in Connecticut, where I'm based, and around the Northeast. So since we joined Lean Focus in 2020, I primarily work on operations and lean manager and director level searches while also supporting other recruiters on our team with VP level roles and higher. So I still wear a ton of hats. I manage our back office, our search operations team, and a lot of client and candidate relationships. So because I'm responsible for evaluating new job opportunities and searches with our client companies, as well as finding, evaluating, and interviewing candidates for our roles, I hope that I can provide the right mix of real life examples and best practices here for you today on this specific topic. I spend most of my days on LinkedIn and in our candidate database, finding the right people for roles. And I really feel like I know exactly kind of what recruiters do when searching for the perfect candidates for their open positions. So today we will be discussing how to jumpstart your job search for 2023. So everything you should do and know before pressing submit on any of your applications. We'll first talk about how to know when it's time to kick off a job search and what you should be thinking about as we head into the new year. We'll explain how to update your LinkedIn to get noticed by recruiters like us, as well as how to upgrade your resume to really emphasize your lean experience. We'll talk about how to articulate your lean journey and why you're passionate about lean, and then finally how to prepare for those interviews. So there are tons of upgrades you can make during the last month of this year to ensure that you're actually ready to kick off your search for 2023. First, let's talk about how to know when it's actually time to make a job move and where you should start. So, here are some of the key indicators that it may be time to move on from your current role and company. So, if there's no growth trajectory within the organization, be sure to ask first. We get a lot of candidates who start searching for a new job without realizing that their boss actually has something planned for them. People end up opting out of interviews with new companies once they've already started the process, or even once they've accepted a new role, a new offer. We recommend having those conversations for career planning purposes, as long as the company itself is one that you enjoy working for. If the organization doesn't seem committed to lean, so if it's not being driven from the top down, the C-suite has stopped supporting the journey, maybe they never have, you know that your role may be one that they don't prioritize in the future. So, we can imagine, based on your interest in this webinar, that you want to be in a place that truly views lean as a way of life, not just a cost saving measure. So, part of the reason to think about making a move there. And if there's a lot of turnover within leadership positions and the company maybe has some cultural and retention issues, you may decide that it's time to move on. There's nothing wrong with recognizing when a company is no longer the right place for you and deciding to make a change. That's certainly reason enough. And then if you're hoping to expand your industry experience or really feel like you need a fresh start. So sometimes you need a brand new organization and it doesn't necessarily make sense based on your career goals to move up within your current company. So some examples are, if you've been in automotive or aerospace your entire career, you may feel like you're going to be pigeonholed kind of within that industry. So you may decide that you'd like to expand your horizons a bit before that can happen. And then obviously sometimes the reasons are more simple, like you're interested in relocating and your current role doesn't offer that flexibility. So maybe you and the family are tired of snow, want to move south. So you made the decision to apply specifically for roles that would require relocation to that area. And sometimes, again, you just kind of feel like you need a new challenge. Your current role has grown stagnant. Maybe you've been there for 5 years, you've achieved a lot, but you really need a change of scenery at a company that has new and unique problems that you can help them solve. Once you've decided it's time to make a move, you should spend some time clearly defining what you want and what you don't want in your next role. So first, think of the company and the type of company. Think about the size of the company that you want to work for. If you go with something a bit smaller, you may be able to wear more hats and stay hands-on in day-to-day operations and kind of work at Gemba and lean deployment on the floor. Maybe you'd like a larger company so that there are more directions to go in the future, or you have the ability to take on a larger scope, whether that's through amount of revenues or number of sites. Think about what industry you'd like to explore. Do you want to stay in something similar? Do you want to try something that's brand new to you? And then think a bit more about lean and where the ideal company is in their journey for you specifically. So for example, if you have the appetite for architecting a system from scratch and really want to deploy continuous improvement in a total greenfield environment, we have clients at that state of the journey. We also have plenty of clients needing a refresh where maybe lean didn't stick before, but the new leadership team is really committing to making it work. And you think the challenge of kind of changing the minds of the people there who don't think lean works, they tried it before and it didn't stick, maybe that's the type of challenge you're interested in for your next opportunity. And then maybe you'd even prefer the challenge of, a well-oiled machine. You want to go to a company that has really strong discipline around lean and, see how much impact you can make on top of what's already been done, because that's a different type of challenge for you. And then what kind of role do you want and what scope do you hope to have? So again, think about the number of sites you'd like to be responsible for, or if you'd prefer to stick with one plant location. So if you've been driving lean through operations roles for the past 5 years, maybe you'd like to move into a dedicated lean deployment role to get back to your roots. And of course, think about the basics. Again, locations you'd be comfortable with and the level of travel that you can handle. The biggest thing to think about here is your progression. What next career moves do you need to make to get to your eventual dream job? Think about the types of roles that will help you get where you want to be in 5 or 10 years. And again, it goes beyond the job title. It's just because the role is a VP of operations by title doesn't necessarily mean that it will have the same scope of responsibility as another VP of ops at a different organization based on their size or their industry. So think about what companies will actually help you move up the ranks and land your dream job eventually, kind of based on their org structure and different locations. And then, things to think about, like for a role you're looking at now, if one of our clients is comfortable with you staying in South Carolina for a multi-site lean director role, but the next position for a VP of lean needs to be based out of their headquarters in Chicago, and you don't ever want to move there, it may not be the best fit for your long-term career goals, location, planning with your family. So these are all things to consider. Once you've determined exactly what you're looking for and that you're ready to make that move, trust yourself and commit to the process. So make sure your spouse or your family are on board and know what you're looking for. Talk with trusted friends and people in the industry to let them know that you're thinking about making a move. Contact your favorite recruiter that got you an awesome job a few years ago, because chances are they'd be really eager to place you somewhere again. And one thing we advise candidates to think about is what might happen if you're given a counteroffer from your current company. So in those situations, really think about why you decided to make a move. And if all of those reasons still apply based on what they've offered you as a counteroffer, really just be sure to make the right decision and the best decision for you and your family. So this is why, again, we also recommend talking with your current boss about career trajectory and what's next for you before you commit to a job search. If you love your current company and you simply need an advancement opportunity, just vet that out first. So part of the reason that we suggest truly committing to the job search process is because the talent market is hot and moving fast. So with the economy still rebounding from COVID, but also in many areas declining still, with some after effects, companies are hoping to retain top talent, again, with counteroffers or promotional opportunities that you may not have been privy to before. One thing that remains true is that high quality lean talent is in demand, and your skill set is highly valued right now. Our clients especially value lean expertise in tough economic times because these leaders can assist with rising costs, supply chain issues, improving, labor utilization. So our talent search team really remained busy in 2020, believe it or not, when COVID was at its peak, because key clients were still able to come to us to fill those essential roles in their organizations. We're busier than ever right now with our clients and their hiring needs. So despite those economic changes, and it's really important to make sure that your LinkedIn presence is strong so we can help find you and find the good opportunity for you. And we'll talk about some ways to really set yourself apart from the rest. So now that you've committed to finding something new, let's talk about the top 5 tips to make your LinkedIn profile easy to find and appealing to the recruiters who are looking to help you land your next job. The first tip is to update your profile. Truthfully, we recommend that you always have your profile up to date so you never have to do that mad dash to update it when you've decided to start a job search. It's always ideal to have the most updated information, even just for networking opportunities. So it makes it so much easier to, turn on your job search when you don't have to add your last 3 roles on LinkedIn in a hurry. Other quick tips here would be to use a professional photo or headshot. Always include your current location, role, and company. And then end previous roles before starting new ones on your page. So sometimes we see people who have left their previous organization and still have it listed as current. So it looks like you're working in 2 places at once. These are simple fixes that are made easier by always making updates and ensuring that your profile is accurate. By the way, we recommend this for resumes too. So if you get promoted in your current company, update your resume to include what you did in your last role and what you're doing now. So even if you don't think you're going to be moving on anytime soon, anything can happen. You may need to do another interview internally for a different role, and you have to pull data points from your last position when you're interviewing for that role internally. And then you could easily get a call from a recruiter who has your dream job available and they thought of you right away. So I just know that when you find yourself looking at a resume from 2018 and you have to think back and remember exactly what KPIs you improved and by exactly how much for your last 2 jobs, your search is going to start off a little more frustrating. Our second tip here for LinkedIn is to show progression. So there are so many people on LinkedIn who only show 1 job per company, despite being promoted multiple times within that organization. There's so many reasons to show all of your roles as individual separate jobs under 1 company umbrella, as you can see in the screenshot of my profile there. So first, you want to show, showing that you've been promoted shows that you're promotable. And the company that you work for has really valued you. They've asked you to stick around for a number of years. They keep finding positions that you can stretch into. So another big reason there is that we want to know as recruiters what roles you've held in the past. So if you're a VP of operations now and you've been a lean director before, this is really helpful information for us. We now know that you've been responsible for both operations with P&L responsibility and driving lean as a dedicated position. Our clients are often looking for that mix of experience, and seeing that you've held both titles is super helpful to us as we're recruiting. So there are people who, go through leadership development programs that are rotational programs, and they, have multiple positions in different areas of the business, different locations. We love seeing all of those roles, the locations you lived in, what you accomplished in each of them. It may not seem like it's worth fleshing out because it happened 10 or 15 years ago, but I promise it's worthwhile, especially on LinkedIn. You can keep it, a bit more concise on your resume based on, spacing constraints, but realistically on your LinkedIn, there's no reason not to show off that type of experience. And another quick tip I'll mention here is that you should make it clear if your company was acquired, sold, or spun off at any point. So if you've been with the same company for the past 10 years, but they've been acquired twice, you can include the new company name on your profile, but make a note at the top of the role description that the company was sold. I've seen profiles where it looks like the person has been at 3 companies in 8 years, but they've actually been with the same company that happened to get sold a few times. So these are things that sometimes we just know from looking at the companies and staying up with, company and industry trends, but not everybody might know that from glancing at the profile. So this is helpful for 2 reasons. First, we know that the company kept you on board through multiple transactions, which means they really valued your expertise and they knew that you were important to retain, even as jobs were getting duplicated from the acquisition. And 2, you've been promoted multiple times within the same organization, even if the organization's name changed. So tip number 3 is to use keywords. You'll hear me talk about this a lot for both your resume and for LinkedIn. So be sure that you have the appropriate keywords everywhere within your profile. So in the skills section, as you can see in the screenshot here, in your summary section, which I'll show in a moment, and then within each role as appropriate. So even if the keywords or the lean related terms seem super basic and obvious, you should find a way to include them somewhere. This is especially true for people who are early in their lean journey because, or their career in general, because if you work at a company that's implementing lean and you've been a part of a few Kaizens, include that. Any level of lean experience is worth showing off in this market, in this situation, because if you've been trained by an external firm, Lean Focus Consulting does a ton of trainings on various lean tools and topics like problem solving or, TPI. Those things are worth noting on your profile if you've been able to participate in an event or two, with any external firm or internally, even if you've done some research on your own and you've taken your own courses. So here's a perfect example of a summary or about section on LinkedIn. So this is our CEO, Damon Baker's profile. So as we go through it, and you can see, he starts by explaining his overall career journey in the first paragraph. He summarizes the companies he's worked at and the general types of positions that he's had in his career. He then dives into his lean journey for a quick paragraph. So he discusses where he was trained, So we have an idea of the type of lean business system that he initially learned from. And some of the keywords that I love are circled here, like Toyota Production System and Shingo Prize. So recruiters like us who work specifically in lean recruiting know what these mean and why they're important. Damon shows how many Kaizens that he's led or facilitated, which gives us an idea of the actual depth of his lean experience. Another simple one is that he uses the word global and mentions having worked in 16 different countries. I wish I had $1 for every time we used global as a keyword in searching for candidates specifically with global experience. There are probably so many people out there who have worked outside of the United States that we miss because they simply don't have this word anywhere on their LinkedIn profile. He includes here also the types of manufacturing environments that he has worked in before and his overall industry experience, which is super important to us. So examples I circled like sheet metal fabrication and engineered to order are exact keywords that I personally have used in searches before. So again, I guarantee I've missed candidates with those qualifications and those experiences because they didn't think to include them in their profile. Some of our clients are looking for similar industry experience, like aerospace or medical device. And including those on your profile as keywords allows us to use more than just industry related features because those and filters because those aren't really as accurate as they could be. So we use them as keywords again to better find you. And then finally at the bottom there, Damon lists all of the lean tools he has exposure to and experience with. These are foundational tools in most cases, but they really help recruiters key in on your experiences. It's a no-brainer that Damon would have experience and success in standard work, and he still included it on his LinkedIn profile, which is super important, again, for people to be able to find him or similar candidates. And, if we're looking for people who have specifically worked in machining, for example, having keywords like SMED and TPM are crucial. If we're looking for candidates who work on the transactional side of the business, having TPI on there will help us find you. I'm not sure how many people are aware of this function, but our fourth tip is that you can mark that you're open to work on your LinkedIn profile. So you can choose the audience, the types of roles and workplaces that you're interested in, the locations you'd like to work, and any other important elements that would help us find you. You can include your open to work to all LinkedIn members, which is really best if you were recently laid off or left a company. So this lets everyone know on LinkedIn that you are looking for something new. If you select the recruiters only option, it will appear to those of us who use LinkedIn Recruiter. They do take steps to make sure that your current employer doesn't find out that you're marked as open to work, especially if those in your HR departments are using LinkedIn Recruiter. The location preferences here are super helpful. For example, if you're in Miami and you want to relocate to Cleveland for family reasons, it's where you're from, you're a big Browns fan, we wouldn't know that you're interested in that location and may not consider reaching out to you about our Cleveland-based opportunity. We would assume someone in Miami may not be interested in that spot. So, we get roles in Colorado and a ton of people in the Northeast might want to move west. And if you don't put that on your profile, it makes it harder for us to kind of filter where people are open to relocating. So it helps us really narrow down the types of roles and the locations that you'd be interested in. And our final tip, of course, is about networking. This is the purpose of LinkedIn after all. Expand your network by adding former and current colleagues on LinkedIn. Like I mentioned before with the resume and LinkedIn updates, it makes sense to do this over time so you don't have to start networking in a hurry when you decide to make a job move. We recommend, contacting or following search firms like us who specialize in your area of expertise. So there aren't many lean focused search firms out there, and we do have some of the best clients, in our opinion, for you to explore opportunities with. The LinkedIn page for Lean Focus includes a ton of job opportunities and insights from the consulting part of the practice. And then another avenue is to kind of reach out to former colleagues who work at companies that you'd be interested in joining. Catch up with them, ask them how they like it, ask if there are any opportunities you could be a fit for, and they may be able to help you get in the door. One of the biggest recruiter-friendly tips around networking is to always reply to recruiters, even if you're not interested in the role at hand. So tell us why you're not interested, as well as the roles that you are interested in. Share your resume with us, even if this position isn't a fit. We consistently come back to top candidates for roles in the future, and there may even be another role we have that you'd be interested in that exact moment. And if we can't tell from your profile or if you haven't listed yourself as open to work, we'll reach out regarding opportunities that look like a fit based on what we can see on your LinkedIn profile and career progression, again, that is available for us to see. And that's why it's really key to include all of your past roles within your company so we can ensure that you may be a fit or may be interested in the roles that we have. There are plenty of times where our clients want someone who has been in a lean dedicated role before moving into operations. And if you've done both, we might reach out to you for one or both of those types of opportunities, and replying to us and letting us know what you're actually interested in really helps us all find you the right fit. So you should be prepared to answer some of these basic questions that we might ask. Again, if you don't have interest in the role that we specifically reached out about, tell us the locations, the types of roles, your willingness to travel. These are some of the top pieces of information that we can include in our system to ensure that we reach out with the right positions for you in the future. So it's really the best way to build an ongoing relationship with a firm like ours. We also really appreciate referrals. We currently have candidates interviewing with our client companies as we speak who are referred by other candidates that we've worked with in the past, or even just people who replied to us on LinkedIn with the name of a former colleague. It's all about networking on LinkedIn, obviously. So once your LinkedIn is looking polished and recruiter ready, it is time to work on upgrading your resume. Again, we'll start with some basics. Resumes should really be simple and appealing. I personally prefer a white page with a simple black font like Times New Roman, Arial, Calibri. You don't need to include any photos or fancy formatting, and try to keep it under 3 pages. If you've been out in the workforce for 10 years or under, it really should be 1 or 2 pages. You can use your new and improved LinkedIn profile to populate different keywords and skills on your resume, or vice versa if your resume is in better shape than your LinkedIn is when you first start your job search process. So I'll get into a resume sample here in a second, but the best advice I can give is that each bullet begin with an action word and should be results focused. Your resume should never simply be a list of duties. This is one of the biggest issues that we find with candidate resumes, especially in continuous improvement. So we can't tell from your resume sometimes what your scope of responsibility was or how you impacted the bottom or top line because you only include the tasks you did on a daily basis. And again, as you'll see in the sample in a second, you can have a line or two that describes the details of your role, but the majority of the bullets should be focused on achievements. That's really what lean can be. Lean is about driving results, and making sure that you show that you can drive results will really be helpful to us as we review your candidacy. So here's a quick sample that I pulled together. As you can see, we've got John Smith. His resume has a plain font, simple format, contact information at the top. There's a small summary or kind of introductory paragraph. Doesn't have to be an objective like it used to be, but it will include, an overall how many years of experience the person has, what key areas of the business that he's worked in. So John here has manufacturing operations, production management, lean deployment. In the end of his paragraph, it says that he's open to heavy travel. And, these are some of the things that you may have featured in your open to work section on LinkedIn. So his resume then moves into career experience. Each role can have a quick headline about the scope of responsibility, like I mentioned. So it says the company's industry, how many plants they had oversight of, the plant locations, the number of employees, and how much revenue that they were responsible for. So again, here for John, with his role at ABC Corporation, you can see that he was the head of operations for an auto parts manufacturer, including 4 plants in the US and Mexico, totaling $500 million in revenue. So this allows us to see at a quick glance what his span of control was and his overall scope of responsibility. So you can get more specific than that. So if your company manufactured braking systems or steering wheels, you can include that instead of auto parts, so that the resume reviewer can better understand the type of manufacturing environment that you've had some experience in. So, better yet, you can include if it was an ETO environment or machine to order or anything else you think might be important. Those things are important to us. We're usually familiar with the types of manufacturing processes or environments based on the company name or the industry, but it can really never hurt to spell it out, especially maybe we have someone new to our company reviewing your resume. Maybe they're not familiar with the companies that you've worked at. So it's just really helpful to include those pieces of information. So, going into his resume again here, responsible for P&L is another big, couple of helpful keywords for us to see too. The areas of the business that you have managed in the past. So if you were in an operations role and you had oversight over manufacturing and supply chain, definitely helps to mention both. You can see all of the bullets under, on John's sample resume here. They all start with words like led, drove, reduced. These are all action words that help show the impact that he made. So there should be tangible results that include revenue savings, percent of improvement in each bullet. And you can also see that this resume shows progression and promotions within his Acme organization. So it shows the total years at the company as well as the number of years or total years in each role, each individual role. And it's not shown here on this particular sample, it's just a quick snapshot, but we would put your education, training, certification section down at the bottom on the last page of the resume. So if you're fresh out of college and looking for an entry-level position, you could definitely put your education section at the top before your career experience. Otherwise, we put that at the end usually. As I mentioned in the resume sample, there are some key company or role related details that you should include. So the overall company revenues, as well as the revenues that you specifically were responsible for, if any, the size of the plants in terms of number of employees, if you had global responsibility, including the country names, the locations of the plants that you had oversight over, and the type of lean environment. Did you deploy lean in a total greenfield? Was it a refresh in a brownfield? All of these data points and numbers and keywords can really help us understand if your experience is right for the role at hand. So we have a client looking for someone who has had P&L responsibility for $500 million in revenues and you worked with $5 million, there may be another role that you might need to have before we might reach out to you for this particular position. We've talked a lot about the keywords to include on LinkedIn, and the same should be said for resumes. So if we have your resume in our database, we're going to do keyword searches like we would on LinkedIn to find your candidacy for the positions that we're working on. For example, we may use keywords like ETO and Mexico if the client needs someone who has worked in Mexico before in an engineered to order environment. If you're really targeting a specific type of role, especially one in a slightly new area or industry, you can tailor your resume or have multiple versions of your resume. So include keywords that help recruiters understand the roles that you've held. So for example, if you've worked in lean deployment roles and you want to move into owning operations and P&L, you should highlight roles and achievements where you have driven lean within manufacturing operations and impacted P&L directly. If you had an early career rotational program, I'll mention again, where you took a turn as a production manager, make sure that that role is actually listed so it shows you have at least some experience with managing production operations. And if you hope to move into transactional process improvement, but have been mostly in manufacturing, include any and all achievements in those areas of the business. Lean leaders who are primarily responsible for improvements on the production floor likely have done at least a Kaizen or two with sales, HR, supply chain. You could even stretch this a little into cross-functional teams where you had to collaborate with those groups and include them in a Kaizen event. I recently interviewed a VP level candidate and his resume was very heavy on the growth or commercial side of the business, but he actually had a ton of manufacturing operations and supply chain experience that was kind of tucked away in his earlier roles. So depending on the type of role that he was targeting when he developed his resume, He could have customized it or made 2 versions to really call out certain areas of expertise. Here's a quick list of lean related keywords and tools to include on your resume and LinkedIn. Again, many of them seem basic or foundational, but it's important to include them if you've utilized them before. We may be searching our database or on LinkedIn for someone with PSYOP or TPM experience and use that keyword to find you among the literal millions of candidates on LinkedIn. Resumes and LinkedIn profiles should have all of those lean, company-related, and industry-related keywords to help us find you. As I mentioned earlier, if you're new to lean and hoping to get some more experience with it, these keywords are the ones you especially want to have on your resume or your LinkedIn. So working as a value stream manager with some lean deployment experience in your group can really be helpful as you consider maybe making a move into a single site lean manager position. So include all those keywords if you've been a part of any of those trainings and events. So now let's talk about how to articulate your lean journey and highlight your achievements, leadership style, and approach. We strongly recommend that you actually take the time to write down your lean journey. So some of the questions to ask yourself include, when and where did you first hear about continuous improvement or lean? Which role or company introduced you to it, and when did it really click for you? We always like to know when you got the lean bug and how you kind of jumped on those early training opportunities. When did you know that lean should be a way of life instead of just a set of tools or something extra the company does that takes up time in people's days? Did you have any of those common misconceptions about continuous improvement? And it can be really helpful to think back to that time in your life when lean was a new concept and you really didn't know what it was all about. Think of how you broke out of those mindsets and why. And why are you passionate about lean? Why is it important to you? And how have you shown that through the roles that you've held? This could be through dedicated lean positions as well as those in other areas of the business. Maybe you started out at a company with a strong lean foundation and business system and then moved into a company that had no idea what lean was. How did you keep continuous improvement, your mindset around continuous improvement, and maybe even implement a few things without having that wider system in place? In thinking about your lean leadership style, which by the way is something we will ask you, write down how you receive buy-in and how you engage with teams through influential leadership. So most of the time, the people you're working with don't necessarily report directly to you if you're in a lean deployment role. How do you help the managers and the folks on the floor understand why lean is important without feeling like you're forcing them into something that they don't want to do? Your leadership style says a lot about you and your approach to continuous improvement. And then finally, how do you ensure sustainment? This ties into the leadership style piece, obviously, but also what tools do you use to make sure that the results stick? As you're considering your lean journey, think about the successes and failures that you've had throughout your career. This isn't the usual what's your biggest strength or what's your biggest weakness questions that have been used in the past. Think about where you've had success and why. What have you learned from your successes? Where did your work have the biggest impact from a financial perspective? Or how about a cultural perspective? Recall your favorite stories to tell when people had an aha moment where you saw the light bulb go off. And then on the flip side, where did you fail and what did you learn from it? Obviously, the second question is even more important. How did this change your approach to lean deployment on your leadership style? Have you ever gone into a plant super excited to get everybody on board and then found out that your style had the opposite effect on the people there? Think about those stories and how they've impacted you throughout your career. In many cases, recruiters and our clients would rather hear about how you failed and then made changes than where you were the most successful. When we ask you about your lean journey, you should be thinking of how far you've come. How have your skills evolved? Did you start in an organization with Six Sigma specifically, but became a lean convert? Do you have a blended approach because you've gotten some experiences with both under your belt? We get a lot of companies early in their lean journey and they want true Toyota style lean. And, those are things to think about from your methodology perspective. You should also think about the company or manufacturing environments that you've worked in. Has lean deployment been different for you working in high mix, low volume versus low mix, high volume, if you've had both experiences. And what environments have been easier or harder to deploy lean in your experience? How did you tailor your approach? And think about company cultures too. How has the leadership style impacted lean deployment for better or for worse? And how did you handle it? And finally, think about the differences in deploying lean where it's completely brand new versus a company that tried it before and didn't have success. Which is harder? Which do you prefer? It can tell you a lot about yourself and really open your eyes to your own tendencies and preferences. Maybe you're somebody who loves cleaning up messes and prefer coming in where you can really make a ton of change for the better and change minds. But maybe you're someone who thrives off of the blank sheet of paper approach and really prefer to create that system from scratch. In addition to assessing your strengths and growth areas through self-reflection and recording your journey, we do have some lean assessments and quizzes available to kind of test your skills before interviewing. So our website has the quizzes for both commercial and operations oriented lean folks. Our talent solutions team also has a lean lens profile that we have candidates fill out as a part of our interview and assessment process. Gives you the opportunity to really put your lean journey and leadership style down on paper, which helps us, our clients, and you. We get a lot of feedback from candidates that it actually helped them kind of figure out and talk about their lean history as more of a journey, and it helps them better describe their experiences and light bulb moments as they go through an interview process. So now let's talk about how to prepare for interviews. We're in the process of rolling out our new Lean Focus career page as we speak, where you can see the types of positions that we have open at the moment. So as you can see, we have more than just lean leader roles. We work on operations, supply chain positions. And the common denominator through all of this, though, is that our client companies come to us specifically because of our focus on continuous improvement. Any role we post to our website or share on social media, even if the role is not directly a lean role, it requires some level of experience in a lean-oriented organization. So this is why it's important for you to include how much exposure you have to lean throughout your online presence and resume, even if you're within supply chain. And we get this question a lot, so I thought I would address it here quickly. The job openings that we post on our website are for full-time direct hire positions at our client companies. So the vast majority of our open roles are with lean focused transformation and consulting clients who are really looking to bring someone on directly to their organization. So some people get confused, on if the roles that they're interviewing for are consulting or interim positions. But the majority of them, if not all, are usually at our client companies if we are reaching out. So Lean Focused Talent Solutions follows a multi-part process here to make sure that you're the best fit for the role and the client company and their position are the best fits for you. You might hear from one of us first in LinkedIn, in your inbox, if we find your profile interesting, based on everything else we've talked about. And, otherwise, the first step would really be applying to roles that you're interested in on our website or, our LinkedIn job postings. So we have a space on our website too. You could submit a general application or a general resume for any consideration in the future. And then next, you'll hear from one of our internal recruiters or members of our team. And so they will do more of an exploratory kind of first round conversation with you about your career progression, and then dive into some of the main qualifications for the position that you applied to. And then we share a job description with you, a blind version without company details first, and then a more robust one later, and then often our lean lens profile. And then the third step in our process is to interview with the recruiter who's working on the role specifically on our team. So this call's more detailed, focused a bit more heavily on lean experience, as well as a heavy focus on the main requirements for the role based on our client's needs. At this point, we'll tell you more about the client company itself. We typically keep the name of the company confidential until you've moved into the second interview, just to kind of make sure there's the right mutual fit and you're interested. And then from there, we move you into the client company's interview process, which varies. We only submit you if you're interested and if we think that there would be a strong mutual fit there. And then, we help guide you through the interview process. We'll talk about this a little bit more later, but Just know that you're supported from start to finish, from the first interview through offer acceptance and even beyond your start date. So this is just a quick sample of a job description that you might see posted on our website or provided kind of early in your interview process. We've got some detailed specs we provide later, but this is an example of what you might see. And now that you know what to expect from our interviews from a process perspective, we can talk about some of the key areas of focus in both our interviews and client company interviews. So one of the best pieces of advice here is to be aware of any red flags on your resume and know how to speak to them. You can be candid but professional, especially when you engage with recruiters first. So you should be able to explain time gaps, short tenure with the company in a professional way. It can be challenging, but find ways to talk about hard topics like cultural fit issues or lack of alignment with your boss. We don't want you to badmouth former employers. It's never a good look, but it is helpful for all of us to work through what happened and how it can be avoided in the future. So it helps us understand if a certain company might be a good fit or not for you. If we know the hiring manager for a position is more hands-on and you like to be left to your own devices, we know right away if this won't be a good fit, and it saves you time, it saves everybody time, and it allows us to find a better role for you. Before your interview, do a ton of research. This may seem like a no-brainer, but it's worth mentioning. Look into the company, Google them, learn the direction the interview's trending. You might be able to reference it in your interview, especially if they ask. If they announce an acquisition, you could talk about your experiences with acquisition integration, footprint optimization, and aligning new plants to the company culture. Really hone in on the job description. Find examples from your career and on your resume. What have you done in the past that aligns with the role, and what are the growth areas or gaps? So these are important to recognize ahead of interviews because these represent the reasons that you are interested in the job at hand. If you're interviewing with a company and the role is a kind of lateral move from a revenue or number of plants perspective, but it involves managing sites overseas, which you haven't done, that global aspect is your reason and motivation for being interested in the role. And then, you can use our job description and all the details we provide to you as you go into the interview process. So some of the major areas that interviewers might focus on around your lean expertise are the 10 shown here. I'll just highlight a couple because most reflect back on what we've discussed already, but the level of questioning as it relates to lean will vary a lot depending on your level. So if you think about, how you've driven results and the leadership style that you utilize to achieve them, this can depend a lot on your level and scope within the organization, but we'll want to hear real results, how you worked with other people, including cross-functional teams and what tools you used, how you make decisions, how you deal with conflict. A lot of this is about, do you follow a certain process? Do you think through the problem before you act? Those are some of the answers they hope to hear when talking about these topics. So, we talked about influencing without direct authority. And then finally, how do you assess and develop talent? This is a key element and that our clients will be thinking about as they build out their lean group within the organization. And, they're going to ask you to train people at different levels, most likely. And so, for example, when we interview site level lean leaders, we may ask about, how do you develop talent on the floor? How do you turn everybody into problem solvers through training? If you're a director or above, we're going to want to know how you develop your own team of lean leaders, how you work with plant managers and above, how you got people to buy in at the leadership level, even the C-suite. So in some ways, these can sound like similar questions asked in different ways. And, clearly we're looking for certain answers. There's no one size fits all, but we do know what good lean leaders look like, regardless of their level in an organization. And that's why we try to get at the same concepts around your approach, your methods, processes that you take. One of the biggest pieces of insight that I get from some of our clients is that some candidates provide a bit too much detail when interviewing. So it's to the point where the interviewer can't really ask follow-up or probing questions. We know it can be exciting to talk about results and impacts you've made, but You should be as succinct as possible. So the STAR method is a popular interviewing approach. This is where you introduce the situation, the task you had to complete, what actions you took, and what the results were. But approaching your answer as rats instead of STAR can really allow you to get at the result first and then backtrack through the rest of the story. So this ensures that you don't spend too much time on explaining the background information, keep it results oriented, keep it action focused, just like your resume. So you may even want to think of a few strong examples of where you've had some success or failure in lean deployment, outline it according to these methods. They want enough detail to show that you know your stuff, but not too much that one story takes up 10 minutes straight of the interview. So outline it, test it out, maybe even time it. As we finish up here, our talent solutions group is truly here to help bridge the gap between candidates and our clients. So making a job move can be a really tough decision, and working with us means you're supported throughout the process. Be honest with us about what you're looking for, share transparent feedback as much as possible. Remember to ask us questions throughout the process so that we can help you successfully interview. We know our clients better than anyone could that doesn't work directly within their four walls. So we know what they're looking for. We'll provide interview prep and feedback that's genuinely custom to you, the client, and the role that you're interviewing for. And just think about how much of a difference that can really make in comparison to just applying for a job and interviewing directly with the company. So some of the things that we'll share with you throughout the process is what to expect from the interviews themselves, the interviewer's approach, their style, the types of questions, and even the content sometimes. Beyond the interviews themselves and what they might ask you, we might be able to share more insights about their actual backgrounds, including the types of companies they've been at before and what their approach to lean might be based on that. And then what parts of your experience you would be highlighting during the interview. So we know what's important to the client for this role, what's most important to them, and we can help you really tailor your responses and your examples to help meet what they need and just highlight where you fit. And then the overall company culture, how they structure their business and where this role fits into the wider organization. We continuously go back to candidates within our network months or even years later. So if a job isn't the right fit at the time and you decided to stay where you were, we still keep all of that. We'll still contact you later. So I've been talking on and off with a candidate since 2020, and it was never the right time for a job move for him. And he received an offer this month from one of our clients, and it's finally time for him to make that change. So as you can tell, it's more than just a one-time thing when you apply for roles through Lean Focus. We really want you in our network for years to come. I'll open it up to some questions. I know, let's see if there are any. We did, run close to the end here, so we might not have too much time. If any questions come through, I know one of the questions I've talked about before is how to broach the topic with your boss. If you're thinking about making a move and you want to talk about upward mobility, I think there's ways to do that without letting them know that you're interested in making a change. If you meet with your boss regularly for one-to-ones or end-of-year reviews, talking about the next steps in the organization for you and timing should be kind of natural in that situation. So that is a question I get sometimes, so I thought I would address that now. For folks earlier in their lean journey, we do have future content for you. I think this one was a bit focused on director level, manager level, and a bit higher, but we do have some content coming your way next year around that. So if you're earlier in your lean journey and you're looking for something a little more tailored to you, that definitely that will be coming your way as well. So if I see any questions pop in that I missed, I will send out a note to It looks like there might be a couple here. We got about 5 minutes. Let me just try to open it up a little bit here. So let's see. One question is that someone's curious to learn how normally the large companies set up their lean office management and what their structure is, how many people will be in the lean office. So that definitely depends on the organization and their structure. We have clients that are multi-billion-dollar companies where they've got VPs at a corporate level. They have a head of a business system. They have directors within various business segments, business units. And then they have managers that are based on at each individual plant. So it can be definitely dependent on the size of the company because that's a relatively decent sized organization. And so, they're more likely to have more folks available to help. But with some companies that are much smaller, they really end up like you have to wear a lot of hats. You're going to be working on the floor, you're going to be traveling between a couple of plants. So hard to answer specifically, just because every company is different. And we often in our organization, we can help those companies. We can help those companies figure out the best way to structure it as well. It's a service that we offer. So I hope that kind of answered your question, but probably not because it does vary quite a bit. I don't see any others here that I can answer right now, so I will send any follow-ups as necessary, but thank you so much for attending. I really appreciate it. I hope that this was helpful to you as you think about finding a new role in the new year. And, we're here to support you. Reach out to us, shoot us a note, apply to our role, and we'll be sure to reach out to you for future opportunities. Thanks so much.